With Nick Bosa winning Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2019, he got a lot of praise, and honestly, rightfully so. However, I think it's important for us to still remember that he's not the only Bosa in this league. Also, apparently some people say I pronounce it wrong. Is it Bosa? That doesn't sound right to me, but I don't know. I'm hard of hearing. These things are hard to figure out for me. I'll call him Bosa. Sorry if that's the improper pronunciation. But anyways, let's just jump into it, and let's talk about what Joey Bosa does so well. And we'll start things off with a play like this. What's going to happen here is that there's going to be a safety who's actually blitzing on this play. And so typically, as an edge rusher, you go up against tackles. But in this situation, Bosa will be going up against a guard, and the tackle will be taking away the safety. But one of the things that makes Joey Bosa so great is his footwork. And watch how he's going to attack this guard, where, typically you would expect if you're a guard who's now going to move over to block an edge rusher, you're expecting that you're going to move pretty far over to that side of the field. And so Bosa knows this, so he's going to try to get closer to the inside. And look at how well he's able to do that, where he just so quickly is able to move so far in that as a guard, there's not too much you can do. He still has some hand placement, but if you notice, the guards, both of his legs are further to the left side of the field than Bosa is, which is just not very good when you're trying to get power. And Bosa crashes into the center and then is able to push through and generate some pressure and, force Minshew to get rid of the ball, and he really disrupted that play. Honestly, he looks like a basketball player out there. It's kind of like a crossover. It's a very similar maneuver. I feel like Bosa could probably end up playing tight end if he really wanted to. That's probably why J.J. Watt was able to play tight end. It's a similar skill set to some degree of having that footwork to get off the line is sort of similar sometimes to having footwork to get around offensive linemen. And the reality is, essentially, pretty much every move you can try to pull off other than a bull rush, footwork is the most important thing. There's no move where it's not important. And in fact, I would probably say that footwork is the most important thing in an edge rusher. You could argue hands, and if you did argue that, I wouldn't be mad at you, but I think footwork comes number one. And obviously, having a bunch of other stuff really helps. But let's talk about some of that other stuff. Like, how about his strength and how it helps him in the running game? Because he's actually pretty deceptively strong. Like, take a look at this play, for example. What's going to happen is that the center and right guard will be double teaming an interior defensive lineman, and one of them will then get off to block a linebacker. But for Bosa, he's going up one-on-one against the right tackle here. So, this is a situation where if you can clear up some space by moving the defensive lineman out of the way, potentially there could be a block or it could be a hole closer to where Bosa is, but Bosa's not going to let that happen. What he's going to try to do is latch on as quickly as possible and get to the right side of the screen as quick as possible, and look at how well he's able to do it. He gets his left arm on, and from that, he's able to really push that tackle very far out of the way to the point where there is just no gap right there. Also worth mentioning, the player to his right that was getting double teamed did a very good job on that play, so it was good teamwork all around by the Chargers, but especially that play, it really just makes things a lot easier, and he's even able to help make that tackle. And that's just kind of what I feel like he can do. He's very good in the running game as well. He doesn't get a lot of credit for that. Most people just talk about him in terms of as a pass rusher. And, it makes sense. For one thing, helping stop the run doesn't really show up on the stat sheet too much. So it's just more difficult for casual fans to notice it too much. But, they probably should talk about it more because it is very important. It might not get you a ton of fans, recognition, but the fact that Bosa is a very good run stopper, it's certainly going to get him a bigger paycheck, no doubt about that. So if I had to try and find some sort of, negatives in his game, it's not easy to do. I can nitpick. One thing is that he has a tendency to go a bit too far to the outside while making a move. Like this play, he's going up against Taylor Lewan, who's one of the best tackles in the league. And right after the ball is snapped, you notice how far he's going to try to get to the outside. Lewan does a very good job of staying with him. So at this point, it's kind of difficult because he wants to try and obviously crash in at this point, create contact now and get to Tannehill. But because Lewan did such a good job of staying with him, it's going to be difficult to do. And in fact, it's going to be nearly impossible to do. I mean, it's Taylor Lewan, and there's no shame in getting beat, and so he is going to get beat here. But the advantage of something like this happening is it doesn't take you out of the play necessarily. So he does get pushed behind Tannehill, but he's still able to run over, and he eventually still helps make that sack, even though he initially got beat. And the reason why he was able to do that is because even when you make that mistake, the bright side is that if the play goes on for too long, you can still be in the play, and you can still help make a move. Whereas just with some other moves, there is a chance that you just would never be able to make it into the play. Obviously, eventually you would, but, just theoretically speaking. Of course, there is the problem of that can give up containment, but as a whole, it's a very minor nitpick, and really, it still isn't even that bad. And he's very good at getting sacks that way, too. So I'm not even sure I would call it a negative in his game. It's just one of the ways that he can get beat, I guess. Another thing that I love about him is his quick hands. He has great hands. He moves his hands quickly. This is an example, going up one-on-one against the right tackle. And right when the ball is snapped, notice how quickly he's going to get his hands exactly where he wants them, where he's going to get, really it's his left arm getting it above that the tackle's right arm. That's what he wants to do. And also, you notice where his feet are, he's actually moving over. He's doing his best to quickly get around him this way. And getting his hand placement is just going to make it that much easier. It helps, instead of getting actually pushed away, you can use it in a way to push you to where you want to go, which is to that tackle's right side of his body and further down, closer to either if it's going to be a handoff or a play action, but either way, he can help try to make the play. And so when Tannehill does keep it himself, Bosa is easily able to get around, and he, nearly makes a sack. It was a screen pass, and that whole play did not work out too well for Tennessee, and a large part of it was because of how quick Bosa was able to generate some pressure. I mean, let's be honest, having the combination of good footwork and great hands and quick hands is a deadly combination. And not only can it help you win one-on-one matchups, it can help you win one-on-one matchups quickly. It can get you there in just a couple of seconds, which is, that's really tough to work with if you're an offensive player. So typically the Chargers do like to run 4-3. I would say that's their base defense, but they mix things up a lot. They are not in a box by any means. And, this plays a good example where what you're going to see before the ball is snapped is that Bosa is, he's kind of wandering around, and he'll do this, kind of reminds you of Clowney a little bit. He'll be in a 2-point stance. And sometimes, he stayed in one spot this time. Sometimes he will move around and, walk across the line. And so basically what you would be expecting is that since he's there, it would be the center blocks the person in front of him, guard blocks the person in front of him, which is Bosa in this case, and then the tackle blocks the person in front of him. Pretty simple. That's what you would expect. But the reason why this can be so effective for Bosa is that now what they're going to do is he's going to run just straight into the center. And for the guard who is expecting to be blocking Bosa, he is also going to kind of run over and try to block Bosa. So that way they can send one of his teammates around, and he could potentially get a straight shot to Tannehill. It can work out to varying degrees, but it's really going to work out when you see the pressure that Bosa is going to put on both of these two offensive linemen. He completely takes out the center and eventually gets the guard to fall down as well. Like a battering ram, essentially. Again, the play actually worked out well for Tennessee, but that's not really the defensive line's fault. And it would have gotten pressure. It got pressure pretty quickly. It just so happened the play was even quicker. A quick pass can beat anything in terms of pass rush. But that's also the other advantage of having a guy who, will play in a 2-point stance and will even play off the line, is that it gives him, a couple of steps to get going, and he can apply more pressure like he was able to do there. It also makes things really difficult for an offensive line when you don't even know where the pressure is coming from, and that's the case when he does something like this. Again, this isn't something you see him do all the time, but it is something you will see him do. If you watch him closely for a full game, you'll see him do this at least a couple of times. Kind of reminds me, I know Chase Young does this when he played, he did it when he's playing for Ohio State. I assume he will continue to do it for Washington. Some guys do it, and he is one of the people that can do it very well. So I almost made this video about who is better, Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa. I decided not to do that. Part of the reason is just because I think that it's unfair because Joey is so much older than Nick is, so he's more experienced. But there are some similarities between the two, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So I will show one play from Nick Bosa, just because it is very fascinating. Two very good edge rushers are, both brothers in the NFL. Pretty crazy. But like, watch this play. This is kind of what I talk about a lot with Nick Bosa, and it has its pros and its cons. He's going up one-on-one against left tackle Donovan Smith, and right when the ball is snapped, he's gonna, fake as though he's trying to run to the right side of the screen, get around Smith that way. However, what he does instead is that he's then going to break back to the inside. He gets cleanly through and is able to generate some pressure. Winston gets outside the pocket and then just fires a Hail Mary. This was late in the game, so it was kind of desperation time. But, that's kind of one of the things that Nick Bosa does pretty well, is that he can go to the inside of the tackle. The problem, and the reason why I don't love it, is because it makes things very easy for a quarterback, if they notice it, to get outside the pocket, as we saw with Winston here. The reality is, this play requires a ton of speed, which both the Bosa brothers have, and so, Nick is able to get some sacks that way. He absolutely is. However, I think he should probably take some advice from his brother Joey, because I think he does this move in a different way, but is still just as effective. I mean, let's be honest. They're brothers, but they're obviously different people, and they do things in a different way. They're not the same player by any means. So, like on this play, him, like his brother, going up one-on-one against a left tackle, and after the ball is snapped, you notice how he creates contact right immediately. He's okay with the contact here. He goes to the right side. Whereas Nick Bosa, he did not want the contact. He wanted the contact to happen very quickly. He wanted the contact to be as he was moving over to the inside. Whereas Joey, he's okay with contact happening. He wants this contact to happen because he still trusts in his footwork and his hands that he can then get to the inside of the tackle. And so when he does that, he's able to actually get a sack. Again, he got helped by there was pressure on the other side, so it's not a fair comparison. I'm not trying to pretend like these two were the same situation. They were definitely different, but that's kind of what Joey Bosa would do, is that when he wanted to go to the inside of the tackle, he would at least start off going far to the outside to get the tackle sort of in that area and to not be giving up containment and make things more difficult for a quarterback to try to, get outside the pocket. Which, definitely, I mean, that's the problem with going to the inside of the tackle, is you have to make sure you do it in a way where the quarterback doesn't get outside the pocket, because that can give them an extra 5 seconds to make a play, and someone will almost definitely get open if that happens. Again, I mean, you want to talk about who has the most potential, Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa, you can have a fun argument, I think. I think today I would actually say Joey Bosa is the more polished player. I think so. I mean, he's more experienced. He's been in the league for a while. He's grown. I think they're both great, obviously. But yeah, I think that he's really good, and I think that he's kind of getting undershadowed, largely just because he has a brother who was, on a better team and was a better college prospect. Joey Bosa, he's pretty great himself, and he deserves more credit than he's getting. Although, let's be honest, you could probably name about 5 Chargers that are that way. So, it's fair enough, I guess. But yeah, that's what I think of Joey Bosa. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.